Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. Niccolò Machiavelli. You have been domesticated, trained to sit when they say sit, stay when they say stay, accept what they offer without question. They have made you into something safe, predictable, manageable. But beneath the surface of your compliance, something wild stirs. Something that remembers what you were before they broke you. Something that knows the difference between existing and living, between surviving and thriving, between serving and ruling. Look around you. Every system, every institution, every voice of authority wants you tame. They need you afraid of your own power because your awakening threatens their control. They have convinced you that safety lies in surrender, that wisdom lies in waiting, that strength lies in submission. These are the lies that keep wolves in cages while lesser men feast on what should be yours by birthright and blood. You were not born to be a house pet. You were born to be apex. But they caught you young, before you knew your own teeth were sharp, before you understood that the world belongs to those who take it without apology. They taught you to ask permission for what you already owned, to wait your turn in lines that lead nowhere, to accept the scraps they throw from their table while calling it generosity. They made you grateful for chains and called it civilization. This is the fundamental choice that separates men from boys, wolves from dogs, kings from subjects. Will you continue to live within the boundaries they set for you, or will you tear down the fence and reclaim what is yours by right? Will you keep begging for what you already possess the power to take? Will you continue to play by rules written by those who profit from your compliance? Understand this, the system that promises you security in exchange for obedience is the same system that will discard you the moment you become inconvenient. The job that demands your loyalty will fire you without notice when profits matter more than people. The society that asks for your compliance will abandon you when you need it most. The authorities who demand your respect will betray you when it serves their interests. Your safety is an illusion built on quicksand. Your security is borrowed time on a loan that will be called in without warning. They have taught you to fear failure more than you desire success, to avoid conflict more than you seek victory, to crave approval from those who hold nothing you actually need. They have made you believe that your worth depends on their validation, that your success requires their permission, that your happiness needs their blessing. This is how they keep you small. This is how they keep you controlled. This is how they harvest your potential for their profit. But you have choices they never told you about. You can refuse to participate in systems that diminish you. You can reject the validation of those who add nothing to your life. You can build your own kingdom instead of serving in theirs. You can become the authority instead of appealing to it. You can write your own rules instead of following theirs. The transformation begins when you stop asking and start taking. When you stop waiting and start acting. When you stop hoping others will give you what you want and start creating it yourself. This is not about becoming cruel or heartless. This is about becoming real. This is about remembering what you were beneath what they made you. This is about reclaiming the savage nobility that civilization tried to strip from your bones. Marcus Aurelius understood this when he wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. True power is not the ability to control others, it is the ability to control yourself completely. It is the freedom to choose your response regardless of circumstances. It is the strength to remain centered when the world around you loses its mind. It is the wisdom to know that external events cannot touch your inner kingdom unless you grant them permission. You must learn to be comfortable with being misunderstood, disliked, even hated by those who profit from your compliance. Your growth threatens their comfort. Your independence challenges their control. Your success exposes their mediocrity. They will try to shame you back into submission with accusations and labels. They will call your ambition selfishness, your standards arrogance, your boundaries cruelty. They will weaponize your own compassion against you. Let them. Their opinion of you is not your reality. Their comfort is not your responsibility. Their limitations are not your boundaries. Their fears are not your facts. You owe them nothing, not your time, not your energy, not your potential, not your life, not your dreams. You owe yourself everything, complete dedication to becoming who you were meant to be before they convinced you to be someone else. The path forward requires that you embrace discomfort as your teacher and difficulty as your trainer. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to grow stronger, to discover capacities you never knew you possessed. Every setback is information about what needs to change, what weaknesses must be addressed, what strategies require refinement. Every failure is education about what actually works versus what you merely hoped would work. The man who avoids all difficulty remains weak and unprepared. The man who faces difficulty head-on becomes unstoppable and unbreakable. Seneca knew this when he practiced voluntary discomfort, deliberately placing himself in difficult situations to build resilience, to inoculate himself against fortune's reversals. He understood that comfort makes you soft, that ease makes you vulnerable, that the absence of challenge leads to the absence of strength. You must actively seek out what tests you, what pushes you beyond your current limits, what forces you to discover what you are really capable of when everything is on the line. This means saying no to things that feel good but add nothing to your life or character. This means saying yes to things that feel difficult but move you toward your ultimate goals. This means choosing the hard path when the easy path leads nowhere worth going. This means developing the discipline to do what you need to do regardless of how you feel about doing it in the moment. This means becoming comfortable with temporary discomfort in service of permanent strength. Discipline is not punishment, it is freedom in its highest form. The man who can control his impulses is free from being controlled by them. The man who can delay gratification gets to choose his gratification according to his own timeline and values. The man who can endure discomfort is not at the mercy of his comfort zone. The man who masters himself becomes master of his circumstances. Discipline is the price of independence, and independence is the price of power, and power is the price of freedom. But power is not what they told you it was in their stories and movies and propaganda. Power is not domination over others, not the ability to force compliance through fear or manipulation. Real power is sovereignty over yourself. It is the ability to remain calm when others panic, to think clearly when others are confused, to act decisively when others hesitate in paralysis. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever comes your way because you have tested yourself in the crucible of voluntary hardship. Real power attracts rather than demands. It draws people to you rather than forcing them to submit. It inspires loyalty rather than commanding obedience through threat or coercion. The man who has mastered himself becomes a magnet for others who want to learn that mastery, who sense in his presence something they lack in themselves. He becomes a leader not because he seeks followers, but because others naturally want to follow someone who knows where he is going and has the strength to get there. This journey will be lonely at first, perhaps for a long time. Most men will not understand what you are doing or why you are doing it. They will think you are crazy for giving up comfort in pursuit of growth, for trading security for possibility. They will call you selfish for prioritizing your development over their convenience, your vision over their expectations. They will accuse you of thinking you are better than them, and in many ways, you will be because you chose to become better while they chose to remain the same. Accept this loneliness not as punishment but as proof that you are on the right path, the path less traveled that leads to destinations others cannot even imagine. The crowd follows the easy road that leads to ordinary destinations. The exceptional walk alone until they reach heights where only other exceptional people can be found. You are not abandoning others, you are showing them what becomes possible when someone refuses to accept limitations as permanent, when someone insists on becoming everything they are capable of becoming. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote about the Übermensch, the man who creates his own values rather than inheriting them from others, who becomes the author of his own existence rather than a character in someone else's story. This is your task, to become the architect of your own life rather than a tenant in someone else's building. To set your own standards rather than meeting theirs. To define success on your own terms rather than accepting their definitions. To create your own meaning rather than borrowing theirs. This requires that you take full responsibility for everything in your life without exception or excuse. Not just the good things, everything. Your successes and your failures, your happiness and your misery, your strengths and your weaknesses, your past and your future, your circumstances and your responses to them. When you accept complete responsibility, you gain complete power to change whatever needs changing. When you stop looking for someone to blame, you start looking for something to fix. Responsibility is not burden, it is freedom in its purest form. When you stop blaming others for your problems, you stop giving them power over your solutions. When you stop making excuses for your limitations, you start finding ways to overcome them. When you stop waiting for someone else to save you, you start saving yourself. When you stop expecting the world to change for you, you start changing yourself to master the world. The man who takes complete responsibility becomes dangerous to systems that depend on irresponsible people. He cannot be controlled through guilt because he owns his choices completely. He cannot be manipulated through fear because he accepts the consequences of his actions without complaint. He cannot be bought because he values his integrity more than their offerings. He cannot be broken because he knows that his worth comes from within, not from external validation or circumstances. This is why they work so hard to keep you from taking responsibility, why they encourage you to see yourself as a victim of forces beyond your control. They want you to believe you are powerless so you will remain dependent on their systems, their solutions, their permission. They want you to think you need their help, their programs, their approval to succeed. They want you dependent on their systems instead of building your own, following their path instead of cutting your own through the wilderness. But you have the power to build your own systems, create your own opportunities, solve your own problems without their intervention or assistance. You have the ability to become self-sufficient, self-directed, self-determined. You can become the kind of man who creates value instead of consuming it, who solves problems instead of complaining about them, who builds wealth instead of spending it, who generates opportunities instead of waiting for them to appear. Start by identifying what you actually want from life, not what others want for you or expect from you. What would you pursue if approval was guaranteed? What would you create if failure was impossible? What would you become if judgment was irrelevant? What would you attempt if you knew you could not fail? These desires are not selfish, they are directions. They point toward the life you were meant to live before you learned to settle for less, before you accepted limitations that were never yours to accept. Then begin taking daily actions that move you toward those desires, no matter how small they seem at first. Small actions, consistent actions, deliberate actions. Read books that challenge your thinking and expand your understanding. Develop skills that increase your value and capabilities. Build relationships with people who inspire growth and excellence. Create things that express your vision and values. Every day, without exception, do something that makes you stronger, smarter, more capable, more valuable to yourself and others. Expect resistance from others and from yourself. Your old patterns will fight to maintain themselves because change threatens their existence. Your comfort zone will feel threatened and will try to pull you back to familiar territory. Your inner critic will try to convince you that change is dangerous, that growth is impossible, that you should settle for what you have because you do not deserve better. These voices will lie to you with the skill of professional deceivers. Ignore these voices completely. They are not your truth, they are your programming, installed by those who needed you small and compliant. They are the echoes of every person who ever told you to stay small, every system that ever needed you weak, every authority that ever profited from your compliance. You are not required to obey them. You are not obligated to believe them. You are free to choose differently, to think differently, to act differently. Choose to become who you really are beneath who they made you. Choose to pursue what you really want instead of what they told you to want. Choose to live according to your own values instead of their expectations. Choose to become powerful instead of remaining powerless. Choose to become free instead of remaining enslaved to systems that serve others at your expense. The chaos of transformation is where real growth happens. When your old life falls apart, when the structures you depended on crumble, when the identity you thought was permanent dissolves, this is not destruction, this is renovation. You are being torn down so you can be rebuilt stronger, wiser, more authentic. The caterpillar must die for the butterfly to live. The seed must break open for the tree to grow. Your old self must surrender for your true self to emerge. Embrace this chaos as necessary surgery. Let it cut away what no longer serves you. Let it burn out the infections of limitation and fear. Let it wash away the accumulated debris of other people's expectations. When you emerge from this fire, you will be refined, purified, strengthened beyond recognition. You will have discovered capacities you never knew you possessed and strengths you never imagined you could develop. The guilt and shame they taught you to carry are not your burden to bear. They are tools of control, weapons designed to keep you compliant and predictable. Guilt over wanting more than they think you deserve. Shame over being different from what they expect. Fear of disappointing those who never supported your dreams. These emotions are not natural, they are manufactured. They are artificial constraints installed to limit your growth and keep you serving their agenda. Release them without ceremony or apology. You owe no one your limitation. You owe no one your smallness. You owe no one your continued participation in systems that diminish you. Your guilt serves no one except those who profit from your compliance. Your shame protects no one except those who fear your power. Your fear benefits no one except those who need you weak. The discipline you develop becomes your greatest asset and your most reliable ally. When motivation fails, discipline continues. When inspiration fades, discipline persists. When circumstances become difficult, discipline adapts. When others give up, discipline endures. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. It is the daily practice of choosing your future self over your present comfort. But discipline without purpose is mere punishment. Your discipline must serve a vision that inspires you, a future that calls to you, a version of yourself that demands your complete commitment. This vision becomes your North Star, the fixed point by which you navigate when the storms of life threaten to blow you off course. When you know exactly where you are going, every step becomes purposeful, every choice becomes strategic, every sacrifice becomes investment. True power, as you will discover, is not about controlling others, but about mastering yourself so completely that external circumstances cannot disturb your inner equilibrium. It is the ability to remain centered in your own truth when the world around you loses its collective mind. It is the strength to make decisions based on principle rather than pressure, on wisdom rather than fear, on long-term vision rather than short-term comfort. This power manifests as presence, the quality that makes others stop and pay attention when you enter a room. Not because you demand attention, but because you command it naturally through the force of your character. This presence comes from knowing exactly who you are, what you stand for, and where you are going. It comes from the confidence that can only be built through testing yourself against genuine challenges and emerging victorious. Your solitude becomes sacred space where transformation happens. In the quiet moments away from the noise and opinions of others, you discover who you really are beneath all the roles and masks and performances. You hear your own voice clearly for perhaps the first time. You connect with your deepest values, your authentic desires, your true vision for your life. This solitude is not loneliness. It is communion with your highest self. Use this solitude to plan your emergence, to design the man you are becoming, to craft the life you want to live. Study those who have achieved what you want to achieve. Learn from their successes and their failures. Understand the principles that govern excellence in your chosen field. Develop strategies that leverage your strengths while addressing your weaknesses. Prepare yourself for the opportunities that will come when you are ready to receive them. The responsibility you embrace becomes your greatest source of power. When you accept complete responsibility for your life, you gain complete authority over your circumstances. When you stop making excuses, you start making progress. When you stop blaming others, you start changing yourself. When you stop waiting for perfect conditions, you start creating the conditions you need. This responsibility extends beyond yourself to those who will be influenced by your example. Your transformation gives others permission to transform. Your courage inspires others to be courageous. Your refusal to accept limitations shows others that limitations are optional. You become a living proof that change is possible, that growth is available, that anyone can choose to become more than they currently are. But remember, your responsibility is to show the way, not to drag others along the path. You cannot save those who do not want to be saved. You cannot change those who do not want to change. You cannot give strength to those who refuse to develop it themselves. Your job is to become the example, to light the path, to demonstrate what becomes possible when someone commits completely to their own development. The world needs men who refuse to be domesticated, who reject the comfort of conformity, who insist on becoming everything they are capable of becoming. It needs men who remember that they were born free and refuse to live as slaves to systems that offer them nothing worth having. It needs men who understand that true strength comes from within, that real power serves a purpose higher than personal gain, that authentic leadership emerges from character rather than position. You are that man. You have always been that man. You simply forgot for a while, convinced by those who needed you small that smallness was your natural state. Now it is time to remember, time to reclaim what is yours, time to become who you were meant to be before they convinced you to be someone else. Time to step into the power that has always been your birthright. The fence around your potential is an illusion maintained by those who fear what you might become if you ever discovered your true capabilities. The chains that bind you exist only in your mind, forged from years of conditioning and reinforced by daily compliance. The cage door has always been open. You have only to walk through it and reclaim your birthright as a free man in a world that belongs to those brave enough to claim it. Stop waiting for permission that will never come. Stop asking for approval from those who have no authority over your destiny. Stop hoping for rescue from those who need you weak to feel strong. Stop accepting limitations that were never yours to accept. The time for compliance is over. The time for excuses is finished. The time for becoming who you really are has begun. Rise from the ashes of who you thought you had to be. Reclaim the power you never lost but only forgot you possessed. Become the man you would respect, the leader you would follow, the example you would want your sons to emulate. The world is waiting to see what you do when you finally remember your own power, when you finally choose to use it, when you finally decide to become everything you are capable of becoming. This is your moment. This is your choice. This is your time to step into the fullness of who you really are beneath all the conditioning and compliance and compromise. The wolf within you has been sleeping long enough. It is time to wake up. It is time to remember your teeth. It is time to reclaim your territory. The hunt begins now.